Just saw a clip from Stephen A's interview with Will Smith discussing his upcoming film Concussion, which will be released on Christmas Day. We welcome Ryan Clark back to the desk, who wears many hats. Let me get this title right. Executive Committee Member of the NFLPA. So you have a unique perspective on this subject. Really interested to hear your take. Tell us what this impact, what impact this movie will have on the NFL.
Well, I think for us, it's huge because we've talked about it on conference calls already. And, for D. Smith to even say, guys, listen, it's 85 to 90% accurate of things that have happened.
Wow.
Dr. Omalu's research and information, it was hid by the NFL. The NFLPA testified to that, and it led to the loss of two-a-days. It led to the number of padded days being taken down from where they were to having a limit on how many times you can have these guys hit one another. And so a lot of those things that happened in the movie, maybe not the conversation word for word, but the things that went on that will be portrayed in the movie were actual situations that Dr. Omalu had to face when trying to bring this information forth. There is going to be people who see this movie and that don't think the NFLPA and NFL has tried to make strides since then. They won't understand the work that has been put in, the research that has been put in, actually by both sides, to try to make this game safer. I think this story needed to be told so they can see maybe how far we've come as opposed to where we were. And this is not my PA hat, not my analyst hat, as a player, as a guy who played this game and who loves this game, whose son plays this game in high school now, even with the understanding that I have, which is far greater than what it was even 5 years ago, through different doctors who we speak to every year in PA meetings. I understand what the fight was then, but I also know, especially as a player, how far we've come to protect ourselves and also educate and give the information needed. And so I think this movie is a good conversation piece, but this movie is not a documentary.
No.
This movie is not what we should take and say, this is exactly what happened, exactly where football is now. It's grown from then, but Dr. Omalu was a very integral piece in starting this movement. And when you have the Mike Websters and the Dave Dursons and the Junior Seaus, it is very real to players. And I think this will, though, make it at least a little more real to the people who watch it, to know what these guys are still risking every Sunday, Thursday, Saturday, Monday, whatever day the NFL wants to own to do their jobs.
Stephen A.
No, Skip. I want to hear from you, buddy. Go ahead. Take it away. Take your time.
Well, you threw me a curve there, so I was waiting for you to go. Okay.
You got the interview.
Let me go back to my time in pro football covering this sport.
Yeah.
40 years worth, back to the 70s and the Miami Dolphins of Don Shula. That's where I started. Known hundreds of players, keep in touch with many of them. And I wonder, as I look back, how many knew that there was a danger factor in head trauma. Because I'm going all the way back to the night that Roger Staubach prematurely and shockingly announced his retirement. He was 37, but remember, he didn't start playing because of his Vietnam commitment until he was 27. And I got a hold of him that night on the phone. And I was a little surprised. He said, 2 independent doctors, independent of the Dallas Cowboys, told me I just can't suffer any more head trauma. I'm going to be a candidate for real problems down the road. Now, that was 1979 that happened. So I was pretty aware of it then, and I thought most players were. Troy Aikman retired a little prematurely and cited head trauma as one of the main factors. If memory serves, Steve Young cited concussions as a factor in his retirement. So it's not like this was a dirty little secret that nobody knew about. Is that fair to say?
Oh, definitely.
So I try to get back to where are we heading with all this? I said earlier, glad we've cleaned it up to the point that you now have the information at your fingertips where you can save yourself from your fearless self, right?
Right.
And you were as high collision a football player as I have ever watched. You had no regard for your head or your body. You were headlong into every play because you were an undrafted free agent and you're going to give yourself up every time.
Right,
I can't tell you how much I respected that. But the point is, would you have done it knowing what you know now? Would you do it all over again? Absolutely. I know you would. And you have no problem with your son playing this very high-risk, dangerous game. But he does have the information. Well, when I get to, that's what I was asking Stephen A. earlier, where are we heading here? Will football become extinct because of this movie? I don't think so.
No.
I hope not. I just hope we have a little better awareness of where we're heading with all this. Right?
I think that's the huge reason for making the movie, even listening to Stephen A.'s interview of Will Smith, who said, he said, I'm a fan. He was like, but I believe this story needed to be told. And I think if you do a documentary on Dr. Malu, nobody watches it. Maybe with a Will Smith backing, you get some people just to notice it.
You do need a little artistic license in the story.
Right.
You're going to have to exaggerate a few things.
Because you got to make it entertaining.
Yes, you do. Go ahead, Stephen A.
Skip, I gotta get back to your question about where are we heading with this. Because, you know, one of our editor, an editor for the show, Chuck Solituro, sent an email pointing out how the NFL balks at funding a major brain study. They backed out. They backed out of a major brain study that they were involved between football and the brain disease. It says here, spent years criticizing researchers who warned about the dangers of football-related head trauma, has backed out of one of the most ambitious studies yet on a relationship between football and brain disease. The 7-year, $16 million initiative was to be funded out of a $30 million research grant the NFL gave the National Institutes of Health in 2012. But apparently, somebody that's taken over the research project, the NFL, has been highly critical of the NFL, and the NFL backed out of it. I bring that up, Ryan and Skip and Molly, to highlight this reality. When you ask the question, Skip, where are we going with this? Well, let me tell you where Will Smith wanted to go. He wanted to go a couple of places. One was to inform folks as much as they possibly could. Two was to make sure to remind folks that the research isn't finished. Because again, with all of the 39 rules changes over the last several years and all of the things that I read to you earlier that the NFL has instituted to elevate the level of, elevate the attention to player safety, etc., there is still more research that's scheduled to be done. So it gives the impression that we're just getting started. CTE is not the end-all, be-all. This is just the beginning. And the other thing that Ryan alluded to that I found most uncomfortable, in all honesty, watching the film, was that it had at the very least implied that there was strenuous effort exercised on the part of the NFL to ever allow this information to come to light. It speaks to Ryan Clark and his willingness to address certain things that the Players Association may feel about the NFL, because I got news for you. When people bring up CTE and they show concerns for the players and they're complaining about somebody, it's usually not the Players Association. It's usually the NFL. And so I think that when you look at those three components that I just brought up, that's where we're going with this. We're going to highlighting or thereby incentivizing the NFL to continue to do more, while also reminding us why they need to do more by talking about CTE, and then further enlightening us about the need for additional research, because CTE may very well just be the beginning and it's not the end. And just because you know more and you learn more about the dangers doesn't mean that you stop. It means that you're more enlightened. We know about the dangers of alcohol. We know about the dangers of cigarettes, tobacco, etc. We know, and people still do it, and it's still multi-billion-dollar business. That's what Will Smith was saying to me.
Okay, real quick. the reason the NFL pulled its funding of this new project is that the researcher involved is named Dr. Ann McKee of Boston University. She's a neuropathologist. And a lot of critics of the movie think that she deserved at least as much credit for the early research as Dr. Omalu did, and that she belonged in the movie. So I think it's ironic that the NFL has pulled funds because I think they fear her.
Yeah, no, definitely from the PA side, his research was suppressed. It was hidden. It was part of what we used to implement a lot of the things that we've gotten implemented. We are still researching it. We are still funding research to find out more and to know more in order to help the players. I don't know that this movie changes anything or any of that. I think it makes people aware. I think it's a way to also make money using the biggest game in America.
Yeah.
But from our standpoint, we still want to protect our players. We still want our players to have the information, but we also still love this game.
Yep.
Of course. Ryan, thank you so much for your perspective. Appreciate it. And the league did
Good job,
make a
Ryan.
$30 million grant in 2012 for concussion research. Just want to add that there. More First Take after the break. Stay with us.